Hey everyone, welcome to the CyberHub Engage podcast. I'm your host. My name is James Azar. Thanks for listening. First recording in our new updated studio, which we're really excited about. We're still putting finishing touches on it. It is nowhere near ready, but we're getting there. So thanks for tuning in. Today, we're supposed to have Stan Gatewood, the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Georgia, with us. Unfortunately, he got called into an emergency meeting and had to postpone. And so a segment we wanted to do next week, we are going to do this week. Micah is with me on camera today. You typically hear me address him. Don't really see him unless you're on our Patreon page, and then you see the awesome video we made together. So if you're watching, listening, make sure you go to patreon.com, look up CyberHub Engage. We'd love
/ in CyberHub Engage.
It's patreon.com/CyberHub Engage.
And it's linked in the description of this video.
See, that's why Micah needs to be more on camera. He does this so much better than I do in terms of breaking that kind of stuff down. Our community has really grown, and one of the aspects of our community that we try to address more and more is some of the questions we get. And one of the things we discovered in kind of building this podcast that we really wanted to do next week to kind of get a few more questions and kind of talk to a few more people, we ended up doing today. And I was astonished by how many listeners we have from different places in the world. I think when we put this thing together, Micah, we got like 5 or 6 different countries represented here.
Yeah, it's weird. At least I automatically assumed, you put something out on Facebook and you try to build a community around it. I don't know why. I just assumed most of the people would be from the U.S., which is not the case at all.
And I think it comes to show that cybersecurity is not just a concern in America, but everywhere else. And so there's a benefit to it. So we constantly get emails or DMs or PMs, whatever every network calls their private messaging, something different. I think in Facebook it's Messenger, and Twitter it's DM or PM.
It's DM. I don't know what PM is.
What is PM?
I think LinkedIn's something weird. DM, I don't know.
Is PM LinkedIn? I don't know. Either way, if you know this, please comment below. Solve our dilemma. So we gathered, we had a bunch of questions, and we really had to filter through this stuff because after every episode, after every daily dose of cyber that we put out, we typically get someone who's messaging us, and when it's not a Nigerian prince scam, we find real people behind it. And so Mike and I are starting what we like to call our weekly segment here on CyberHub Engage called Ask James.
Ask James.
We got to figure out theme music. I personally would go with copyrighted music, but apparently we've been told by our legal attorneys that if we use any sort of song on our podcast, we could face legal action from the people. Apparently, there is no such thing as a 10-second rule or 30-second rule when it comes to music.
No. So what usually the best practice is just YouTube has a royalty-free playlist that they currently update all genres. Just Google YouTube royalty-free playlist if you're looking for music to put on any videos. You shouldn't have any problems.
Oh, very cool. I just did that. All right, hang on. We're going to try the Ask James segment theme music. This is a hip-hop beat. I like this. Mm-hmm. This should be like the Ask James segment theme music.
Bam, it's done.
It's done.
Send me a link.
Yeah. All right, we're going into the Ask James segment. Micah, you want to kick us off, man? You got the questions.
Yeah. So our first question to kick off the show today is one from Avi from Israel. Avi.
Not Avi.
Well,
Avi.
That's the southern...
that's the Georgia accent.
It's the southern interpretation. Avi from Israel.
Avi, man. Avi.
I know. I was doing more of my southern accent. Anyways.
Avi's going to get ticked, man. He's going to unfollow our page. So, Avi, I'm sorry.
My apologies. Avi asks, what is a common challenges facing CISO that you keep seeing popping up in conversations?
So, Avi, great question, and thanks for following our community. Every CISO I interview almost exclusively talk about maybe 3 or 4 different areas of concern, areas that they're really trying to find solution for. Number one, I think across every single person we've interviewed, when it started with maybe, Ken from First Data early on in the life of our podcast, to David Nolan, and up until recently Nir Valtman and Alex Tan, talk about the workforce shortage. And that's a really big deal. And it has significance on what a company can do and how it does it, simply because of that fact. When you think of a second common theme is information sharing. Oftentimes, chief information security officers find themselves in a battle arena all by themselves without having any intel. That's, as soldiers, that's like dropping us in the middle of the battlefield with a gun and saying, hey, don't get shot, don't get killed, go get the enemy. And you're like, well, where are they? Well, we don't really know. It's oftentimes that's the case. And you see more and more of that, Avi, as we're starting to see less of that is where I wanted to go with it. Is I think more organizations are starting to understand that they need to empower their chief information security officers. And I think that with time, we'll see that trend kind of shift. And if I was to rate one more common thing that chief information security officers talk about, it's vendor fatigue. And vendors are a very important part of the cybersecurity ecosystem. They deliver products that solve problems for a lot of these chief information security officers. The vendor fatigue, I think, typically comes from undertrained account executives or account executives that might be a bit too over anxious to deliver a solution. A lot of times it's just having that conversation and understanding how a security department works before really getting into it. And I think if you look at that, I did a series with Nir Valtman in Hebrew. I'm really talking to a lot of the cybersecurity startups coming out of Israel. And we do have a version of it in English as well. And I think those will be on our YouTube page. You can find them also on Apple Podcasts, where we talk about some of that vendor fatigue. And Nir Valtman is the CISO for Cabbage. And he shares a lot of the stuff he deals with, and some of the ways that are effective in approaching this community and being really successful. So just to kind of keep that in mind, as things go along, is, look at as a vendor, if you're listening to this, I mean, just work with your team on patience, on really building a relationship. And I'm not saying it needs to take a year or two, but typically if you're able to address a problem, they'll always take your meeting. And if you approach them correctly, you'll be very successful. And if I was to add a fourth piece to it, that's common, and I think we are constantly seeing more and more of it, is the challenges around automation and AI and machine learning. Key buzzwords, key developing and emerging technologies in any industry today, but in cyber especially. And so I think a better explanation of it, and I think we'll try to do our best to kind of get that out there and see how it can change a community. That's what I got for Avi.
Good question from Avi. James, next question is from Zishan, a fan of our Facebook page, and he's from Pakistan. From the people you speak with, what do they look for when thinking of hiring a cybersecurity professional?
Well, Zishan, first of all, thanks for following our page. And I really never thought. Did you think that when we started this, we'd have someone from Pakistan listening to our podcast?
No, not really.
I mean, I never thought so. I don't think it ever crossed my mind. But Zishan, thanks for doing that. You pose a great question. I think because of the workforce shortage that exists in cybersecurity today, you're going to see more and more chief information security officers look for people who have skills over degrees. And I think cyber is one of those industries where a degree doesn't really matter. It's what do you know how to do on a keyboard? How long have you done it for? that really matters. I've seen graduates come from some of the best universities. You put them to a keyboard test and they fail miserably. And I've seen others who are very successful at it. So there's a piece to it that's very there's a piece to hiring cybersecurity professionals that they mostly look at, and one of them is really communication. I think in cyber we tend to fall into the mystique of engineers, right? People who don't know how to talk or have any sort of skills. And I actually spoke to a great lady by the name of Victoria a few days ago, and she does emotional intelligence workshops for technology executives who may be, the keyboard geeks that get promoted through the ranks of a company and all of a sudden have 20, 30, 40, 50 direct reports, and now they're dealing with 40, 50 different personalities. And their emotional intelligence, because they weren't really properly trained to get into that position, is a challenge. And so companies invest in kind of helping them develop those skills. If you're a good communicator, if you understand what you're doing behind the keyboard, if you have some experience and the willingness to continue to learn and develop, those are some of the things, and I think those are key things with most of the guests I've spoken with. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for anything more or less than that. Thanks for the question, Zishan.
So many job openings in cybersecurity, it's going to take a global workforce to fill those positions. This leads us to our next question. And it is from Marcin from Poland, a follower of our Facebook page as
Marcin?
well.
How's it spelled?
Marcin.
I think that's Marcin.
Marcin?
Marcin. I've spent time in Poland, man. I know a Marcin or two.
Marcin from Poland. Marcin asks, what frameworks are leading in the marketplace now? Is there a particular framework over the rest that resonate?
So, Marcin, thanks for the question. And I love Poland, man. Have you been?
No. I was in Germany for a little bit, and that's it.
Poland is pretty awesome. I spent time in Krakow, in Warsaw, in Stettin. Really fun place, man.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Poland. I have a friend who's married to a Polish woman, and they go all the time. They love it.
Dude, all the Polish women are like 6 foot and taller. I felt so short. I'm like 5'10". Like 5'10", 5'11" when I wear my boots. Like I have to do the Tom Cruise trick when I go to Poland, right? I gotta wear like high heeled boots so that the girls don't think I'm just some short American.
You wear high heels, not a big deal.
Well, like high heel boots, man. I don't wear high heels. I'm not rocking stilettos. But dude, women there are so tall. It's like they all play volleyball or basketball.
Yeah, that's what I hear. A lot of Eastern European and Nordic women are tall. And
Poland, too, because it was Poland after World War II, and we'll get to Marcin's question here in a second. But Poland after World War II was kind of like a hotbed because Russia had one part of it, Germany had the other part of it. So in like the eastern part of Poland, right? Most women look Russian, man. They're blonde, blue eyes, porcelain skin, tall. Most Russian women aren't very tall in Russia. Size isn't really a big thing in Russia among women. They're typically average height, most like Americans. But you go to like Poland, Sweden, Norway, Finland, they're like 6 foot, man. They're just tall. I don't know if it's the cold. I wonder if cold weather has to do with height.
I would assume it's genetic and natural selection.
Yeah, well, I love that I was born in the U.S. I wish I had a few more inches on my height. So what was Marcin's question again?
Something about frameworks yes. And which one resonates.
So Marcin's, to answer your question, first of all, next time I'm in Poland, we should DM us after this, and we'll hook up next time I'm in Poland. But I will say this. Frameworks today are mostly coming from the different ISACs that are out there. You have the NIST framework, which is really of in itself a shell of good cyber hygiene and cyber policy, but it's not really a standalone framework. It's a good standalone framework for a very small business, meaning 15 employees and under. NIST, you don't need anything more than NIST. As you grow and as you expand, you're going to need more. And there's a lot of different frameworks out there that come from ISACs. And most large corporations kind of create their own. So they'll take some stuff from NIST and they'll take some stuff from the FSISAC and the Retail ISAC and so many others. And HIPAA and Cobalt and so many and some of these other ones. And they use them for addressing some of their framework needs. And you see that to be more of a trend now. I don't think you see globally there hasn't been a globally adapted framework for cyber, and I think part of that is because there's a lack of coming together on cybersecurity globally. I think all the three major powers in the world today, U.S., Russia, and China, are all kind of testing their cyber capabilities. No one really wants to go into a treaty yet. Simply because it's the wild, wild west out there. And why would you sign anything if you're getting information and you're not having to fire a shot? Just kind of a crazy idea there, but that is what that is. And so we're kind of seeing that be it. So, Marcin, thanks for the question. We're going to take a quick break here for a message from our sponsor, and we're going to be back with the next question. The CyberHub Engage podcast is sponsored by CyberHub Academy. Now, people have been asking me, what is CyberHub Academy? Well, just for the sake of full disclosure, before I get into it, I am a part of CyberHub Academy. My partners there have supported my vision for CyberHub Engage in return for their sponsorship. But they are cyber business operation experts, and that means that they help any SaaS business operationalize cybersecurity, whether it be identifying threats, solving issues and problems, developing incident response plans, practicing incident response through tabletop exercises, and identifying different methods to maximize and really bring value out of your cybersecurity budget. We all know that cybersecurity budgets are tight, and it typically doesn't start raining money until something happens. Well, these are the guys to help you make sure that if, God forbid, something does happen, you would have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Make sure to support them and check them out, cyberhubacademy.com. All right, so we're back. Thanks for that. You had just heard the message from our sponsor. Micah, what's the next question we got coming up here, man?
Let's go to our next question from Alex, and Alex is from Manila. I listen to your podcast, and I often hear CISO talk about hiring challenge. Many consider the Philippines to be customer service and IT support country. Do you think it will become a cyber service provider?
That's Alex?
Alex from Manila.
Alex from Manila. Oh, man. I could go for some Adobe. All right. We cannot keep having international questions. I've traveled so often so that like when I hear some of these countries, I start smelling the food or, the streets or some of that local essence. So, Alex, thanks for listening. Great question. So I think you're starting to see MSPs and MSSPs, so managed service providers and managed security service providers, address some of that by sending jobs to the Philippines for some of the tier 1, tier 2 support in cybersecurity. The other part of it, I think, and the bigger part of it is I don't know if the world is ready for this yet. Security is so sensitive for a lot of organizations that outsourcing becomes a challenge, and they want to outsource typically within their own country and own ecosystem because that gives them a little bit more control, and also for legal reasons. I don't have any facts on this, meaning I can't tell you what are some of the reasons of yeses or nos, and I can tell you that you're starting to see that become more of an option. But I think as treaties start to develop between allies regarding cybersecurity cooperation, you'll start to see that become a trend. There's a lot of really good talent in the Philippines, so my guess is that they'll either open like a visa program and bring some people from the Philippines to work in the U.S., or there'll be a treaty between the governments that would allow for organizations to really outsource stuff to the Philippines and protect it. But I think that's what it's going to take. What's next, Micah?
We got a global audience for the first time doing this. Our next question is from Jansen from the U.S., who's asking about data privacy. What's it going to take for people to care more about privacy and information? Are we numb to the fact that our data is out there, and what can we do about it?
Jensen.
So,
Jensen, thanks for listening. Great question. I've spoken about data privacy a lot, and I've had a lot of different arguments with a lot of people who've come on the show about the illusion of privacy that we have. And we have an illusion of privacy. I don't think we have privacy. I think we have an illusion of privacy. A lot of us use IoT devices. I don't. I personally don't have an Alexa or a Google or Apple device or IoT device. I just don't think they're secure enough yet to stick them in my house and make my home a smart home that's safe.
Wouldn't your iPhone be considered an IoT device that's in your house?
Your iPhone is your wireless device, and you can breach an iPhone. I mean, there are programs out there that the NSA and other organizations use.
Do you think it's easier to breach a smart refrigerator than it would be an iPhone at this point?
Depends on what your goal is. I mean, Alexa isn't really used by hackers outside of, maybe a launching pad for DDoS attacks. Mm-hmm. But when you think of what Amazon collects through an Alexa, I mean, let's do an experiment. Put an Alexa in your home for a week. Sit around, have conversations around the Alexa, then look at your browsing habits and look at the ads that show up.
Yeah, but that's just the manufacturer collecting my data. Same thing could go for your iPhone.
How many data breaches have there been about manufacturers?
Yeah, that's my point. There's no difference between Alexa and your iPhone.
I think when someone breaches your iPhone, it's intentional. They're coming after you for information. I think when someone breaches Amazon, they're trying to collect any kind of information. And so that's a little bit different.
Okay.
I think when it comes to privacy, we're seeing the CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, that's supposed to go into effect next year in California, kind of the GDPR of the U.S., if you could argue, be a kind of a big deal as a privacy law. I think that before that law is enacted, there will be a federal law that will trump it.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. I don't feel like that law is going to really hold across the states. There's a thing about privacy that as I start to see more and more of it and we have more discussions on it, I'm starting to notice that more people are starting to pay attention to their privacy. Although with social media, and I think the way people share stuff on social media, it's almost impossible to control this. This is just out of control at this point. I think our data's already out there. It's been compromised. If not through one breach, then through multiple breaches, and people can piece your identities together now and go out and have a blast with it. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned because we as people have a very short attention span to this stuff. We don't really care. We care for a news cycle and then it goes away. And those of us who are advocates who live in the world, we keep talking about it. But we also have to accept the fact that people's attention spans just aren't there. So to get their attention, it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take continually bringing it up, mentioning it, and then really going to the source, which is the manufacturers, the producers, the distributors, and the perfecting and privacy and for people. But it's going to take an industry-wide effort to really put something together that deals with all the privacy stuff that goes on. And so I think that's going to be the challenge. Going forward. And it's going to be a challenge that we are going to have to solve. And Micah here is taking selfies and putting stuff up on stories, aren't you, Micah?
Yes. Don't mind me.
Yeah, just completely distracting. All of a sudden, I see a phone in my face.
Ask James, not ask Micah.
Globally, I'm gonna tell you this: that in some countries, privacy doesn't exist. When I lived in Israel, I didn't have any. I knew the moment I moved there that I didn't have it. because it's privacy is security trumps privacy in some cases. And you could argue what that's like in different places. I don't see the U.S. reaching that point yet, at least. What's our next question, Micah?
Our next question is from Alex in Singapore, who asks, do you think that it's the government's responsibility to protect its citizens from cyber attacks?
All right, Alex. I love Singapore. Beautiful place. Beautiful. So clean. So peaceful. Beautiful just streets, casinos, you name it. Awesome food. But no, it's not the government's job, Alex. And you don't want the government to be responsible for the state of your security on the internet, because that's where censorship, I think, comes in.
I have a question.
Shoot.
If it's the government's responsibility to protect us from invading armies, how is that different in the cyberspace?
An invading army taking over a country is essentially eliminating a country.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting rid of your freedom,
Mm-hmm.
destroying your economy,
Mm-hmm.
and taking away your liberty in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
It is the government's job, in order to ensure that it continues to reign, to
Life,
secure
liberty,
you
pursuit of happiness, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
from an invading army. Otherwise, the government that doesn't do that cease to exist, because someone will invade
Mm-hmm.
and someone will take their jobs. And we all know that politicians like term limits that they will never pass, don't want someone else taking their job.
Well, what about if a nation state comes in and knocks out Georgia Power or something? Wouldn't that be the same?
That's trolling critical infrastructure.
But government should protect
Critical infrastructure.
Okay, is that okay? So this person's asking about the citizens and
Well, he's
pertinent
asking about
information.
citizens. So, I
Right.
mean, let's break that down. So let's take critical infrastructure. Let's take your online experience and your world
And
on
your
the
data,
interweb
right.
and your data. And let's take businesses.
I agree. I see where you're going, and I agree. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I don't know if they agree, though.
Okay.
So it goes like this. It is the government's responsibility to protect critical infrastructure that serves its population from cyber attacks.
Mhm.
That's electricity, water, internet, the basic necessities to live a good, respectful, decent life.
Mhm.
Right? I'm not talking about your Mercedes. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about just the simple things like lights, internet,
Public utilities.
water, sewage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, public utilities, trash collection, that kind of stuff. When it comes to businesses, I think it's a business's responsibility to defend itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what size company. Right? I think they should have some sort of, not regulation in place, but laws in place that hold them accountable should they be negligent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not an advocate for regulating companies on cyber, because I just think that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that I'm all for organizations really protecting themselves and getting some sort of deterrent regulation from the government, saying if a nation state launches attacks on companies that are critical to the economy, that could be considered no different than, I want to say 9/11. So if you attack a bank,
Mm-hmm.
that's, if you attack a Goldman Sachs or a Chase or whatever, then that should be a form of, a nation, and you're a nation state.
Yeah, I agree, and I can see, like, for example, public utilities. The government should protect our data.
But public utilities in the U.S., unlike other countries,
right,
is private.
right.
It's not public.
It's just the only problem I have with is prices are going to go up.
Well,
Anytime you add any type of regulation or standards, prices will
Not
go
necessarily, because here's the thing. So these utility companies, when you think of like Southern Company that controls a lot of the power in the southeast of the U.S., in Georgia where we live, they're the number one supplier of energy.
up. Mm-hmm.
They're capped on how much money they can make and what they can charge per kilowatt.
But it's going to take bandwidth to put
Not really, because
policies
they already
and
have
regulations in place.
they already have a lot of this in place. I mean, they already do,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's just the coordination between public-private on that end.
Right. Well, I'm all for security, but I'm not all for prices going up. So.
I think we tend to see that happening anyways.
Mm-hmm.
The security tax will eventually come.
Right.
Government will start charging you a specific percentage for security.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime, but I think our kids will definitely see it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of private citizens, I don't want the government anywhere near protecting me from cyber.
No, I agree.
Because that's censorship to me. That's them saying, oh, don't go to this website, go to this website.
Right.
Could you imagine, like, if, all of a sudden you couldn't access the free web?
Yeah, and
you'd be like North Korea.
that'd make a lot of people happy.
Depends on what side of the aisle.
A lot of
Depends on what side of the aisle, right? I mean, if all of a sudden you block Fox News, liberals would be like, woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
But if you block CNN, the right would be like, woohoo! But everyone would cry foul.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the job of the government. Alex, I know that in Singapore the rules and laws are a little different, but Singapore does for the most part have a free internet and does for the most part have a free society. And so you want the government to protect your critical infrastructure, and Singapore being probably one of the best nations in Asia in cybersecurity already does a pretty good job of that. So you're in good hands. What do we got left, Micah?
It's our final question. And this is the final question for this first session, and this is fun.
It's fun.
I picked a lighthearted question for the closing statement of today's Q&A, and it's from Nate from the U.S.
Nate.
What made you start this podcast?
All right, Nate. Thanks for following. Good closing question for today's Q&A. So, honestly, Nate, Micah and I kind of started this out of a desire to just have fun conversations. I found that whenever I was talking to people in cyber, the conversations were so interesting, and we'd always be like, we should have recorded this and just put it out somewhere.
Well, they're valuable too.
Yeah. It's a lot of good knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that's why we started it. I never thought we would get to where we are today, with over, 25,000, listeners, social media blowing up, a Q&A session, being asked to speak and host different events. But that's what's happening. It's morphing. I appreciate the support, and I hope we continue to deliver the kind of content that gets your support and helps you kind of get a better understanding of cybersecurity. It's my passion behind this, and I really love doing the podcast. I mean, I really love talking to cybersecurity professionals. I really enjoy spending time researching some topics, and we are putting together some new shows. So I will say this. So this is our first segment of Ask James. And with Micah, who's my co-host for this segment. And we are working on another series called Beyond the Breach, which will be very, very cool. Mm-hmm. A serial conviction kind of Gimlet Media style show on hackers and different breaches that have happened throughout the U.S.
No big deal.
No big deal. I'm pretty sure we're going to get death threats when we release this stuff. So this shit's going to happen, but it is what it is. We're trying to expose information to help you understand online criminal enterprises and how they work and how they operate and some of the psychology for it. We are doing some last minute interviews. And hopefully we'll have this show produced. I really wanted to put it out in December, January, just we weren't ready. The government shutdown also really hindered some of our federal interviews that we were trying to get for the program. And so I'm hoping that end of this month or maybe next month we'll have it. I want to stay optimistic on it. But the Beyond the Breach series will be out really soon. We host if you're in the Atlanta area, and Nate, I don't know what part of the country you're from, but on the 27th of February, in about 3 weeks, we'll be hosting a meetup at Cabbage's headquarters.
Link in the description.
Which will be great. We're going to be talking about AppSec development, secure AppSecs, and data governance and cybersecurity, hosted at Cabbage's headquarters here in Midtown Atlanta. So if you're listening, you're from the Southeast, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, want to make the drive down that day, come join us for our meetup. It's from 5:30 to 7:30 on the 27th of February. And the next day, InfraGard has a conference in town on the 28th. So maybe come see us the night before and then hit up InfraGard. That should be a blast. And finally, we'll be at RSA the first week of March, broadcasting live from the RSA. So if you're a cybersecurity professional, you're watching our podcast, make sure you contact us if you're going to be at RSA. We'd love to hook up, love to tell you what booth we're going to be at. We're going to be at the State of Georgia booth, broadcasting live. So come by, get some swag, check out everything we've got going on. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking to some great minds in cybersecurity, some of the leading technology providers and so forth. It's going to be a lot of fun, and some of the leading chief information security officers with the delegation from the state of Georgia. And we also have an event on Wednesday night with the state of Georgia. So come by the state of Georgia booth to get your invite and stop by and say hi. So
what about our taco review?
And our taco review, yes. So we did thanks for reminding me. I can't believe I forgot. Well, because yesterday was Taco Tuesday and today's Wednesday.
I actually had tacos last night.
Did you? Yep. Kimchi tacos?
It wasn't kimchi tacos. It was white people tacos, but it was pretty good.
What is it, like ground beef?
Ground beef, lettuce, and I guess it would be Hispanic people tacos, but it's what white people eat.
Does it matter? It's tacos.
Yeah, I'm just...
Like you had Taco Bell tacos.
Yes.
All right.
With no seasoning. That's why it's white people taco.
Okay. Taco seasonings are 80 cents a bag at like any supermarket. Get one, throw it on the meat. Mix it a little bit.
It was good.
Was it? I love tacos. I'm on a diet where I can't have them. That's why I started the taco review. So we're doing a taco review, a really fun segment. As we travel, when we're in San Francisco, we're going to be doing taco reviews every day while we're there at different places. So let us know if you're from the Bay Area. DM us of your favorite taco places. We're going to go test them out. We're going to be hitting the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, for some tacos, although Atlanta's not really known for its tacos.
We should go hit something up tomorrow.
Maybe.
Alpharetta.
We should. Alpharetta has a few taco places now. Yeah, they got like 4 or 5 of them. So we may hit those up. So we've got our taco review coming up, which you can watch on our YouTube channel. And obviously, last and not least, is our Patreon page. Make sure you tune in. We've put together a great community on Patreon. We're looking to get some support there.
We got some pretty cool exclusive member-only offers. And you can check out those tiers. The link is in the description of this video.
Awesome. So you're listening to the first kind of episode of Ask James, of our weekly series. We'll be talking. So if you want to send any questions, you can go to our website, subscribe, email us through our contact page. You can also do it through any of our social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, right?
Yeah. Well, the major
or YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, Patreon, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Message us or comment your questions below. Hashtag Ask James, so we know what that is. I'll get a hashtag trending. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm James Azar. This is the great Micah Smith in our first segment of Ask James on CyberHub Engage.
Good to be here.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.